Did you see this New York Times article about the COVID vaccine and their priorities for people?
Oh, I did not see this article, but I saw an excerpt from something on Twitter. It may have been this about white elderly people.
Yeah. So they're talking about who gets the vaccine first. And, it starts out with some stuff that's woke sounding and bad. And I thought this was going to be the bad part. So it's damnable that we're even being placed in this position, that we have to make these choices, said the Reverend William J. Barber II, a co-chairman of the Poor People's Campaign. But if we have to make the choice, we cannot once again leave poor and low wealth essential workers to be last. So, okay. And they're talking about people of color, more, disproportionately represented in the poor. So, okay, they're having that, but they get really obvious. They get really obvious about this. So, an independent committee of medical experts that advises the CDC on immunization practices will soon vote on whom to recommend for the second phase of vaccination, phase 1B. In a meeting last month, all voting members of the committee indicated support for putting essential workers ahead of people 65 and older and those with high-risk health conditions. By the way, this is what death boards look like, a little more complicated. Historically, the committee relied on scientific evidence to inform its decisions, but now the members are weighing social justice concerns as well, noted Lisa A. Prosser, a professor of health policy and decision sciences. The word science doesn't need to be in this description, at the University of Michigan. She adds on, she's the professor of health policy and decision sciences, because that makes it sound like a real thing. To me, the issue of ethics is very significant, very important for this country, says this committee member dude, and clearly, blah, blah, blah. And he said, and clearly favors the essential workers group because of the high proportion of minority, low income, and low education workers among essential workers. Again, we can have this whole essential conversation, what it means to be essential. But stuff gets interesting, even more interesting down here. So let's take a look. One occupation whose priority is being hotly debated is teaching. The CDC includes educators as essential workers, but not everyone agrees with that designation. Mark Lipsitch, an infectious disease epidemiologist at Harvard's T.H. Chan School of Public Health, argued that teachers should not be included as essential workers if the central goal of the committee is to reduce health inequities. Quote, teachers have middle-class salaries, are very often white, and they have college degrees, he said. Of course they should be treated better, but they're not going to be among the most mistreated of workers. Okay, so apparently being white is a reason to not treat them. Interesting. Let's keep going. Elsie Gould, a senior economist at the Economic Policy Institute, disagreed. Teachers not only ensure that children don't fall further behind in their education, she said, but they're also critical to the workforce at large. When you talk about disproportionate impact and you're concerned about people getting back into the labor force, many are mothers and they will have a harder time if their children don't have a reliable place to go. So for babysitting. And if you think generally about people who have jobs where they can't telework, they're disproportionately black and brown, they'll have more of a challenge when childcare is an issue. So she's saying, yeah, white's a bad thing, but we got to let the white teachers go to work because it hurts these other non-white people. And Francine Blau, a labor economist at Cornell University and an author of the study that they're talking about, according to her, teachers belong in the larger category of essential workers. However, when they work in classrooms rather than remotely, she said they would fit into the frontline group. Individual states categorize teachers differently. Let's see. Where's the one that I really am looking for? There's another beautiful.
Is it
Here
Harald
we go.
Schmidt?
Harald
Can
Schmidt.
I read this part?
Yep.
Let me read
Harald
this part.
Schmidt, an expert.
Let me read this part. This is the excerpt that I read on Twitter, and I couldn't read the whole article because I don't pay to subscribe to New York Times. Okay.
I don't either.
Harald Schmidt, an expert in ethics and health policy at the University of Pennsylvania, said that it is reasonable to put essential workers ahead of older adults. given their risks, and that they are disproportionately minorities. Quote, older populations are whiter, Dr. Schmidt said. Society is structured in a way that enables them to live longer. White people. That's what he means.
Right.
Instead of giving additional benefits to those who already had more of them, we can start to level the playing field a bit. Level the playing field a bit? What this person's talking about is let people die, or according
that's
to
what he's talking about.
According to what he's arguing is, if you believe that the vaccine is going to save lives, like this person does, and you believe, and you're therefore trying to figure out who gets it first, like all of these experts are, and he's saying, in his expert opinion, let's put old people at the bottom of the list because they're mostly white.
Yeah. I mean, this is what central planning looks like. Central planning looks like this. It looks like making decisions based on these kind of things, and deciding who lives and dies. That's what central planning looks like. That's what I mean, there's no argument against this. There's no like, yeah, but no, that's what central planning looks like. Central planning looks like allocating resources, a small number of people deciding who gets what. That's what central planning is, and it leads to death. And the free market is letting people decide themselves. If it's very important to you, maybe you pay more for the vaccine.
Yeah.
If it's very important to your workforce, maybe you pay for your workforce to get vaccinated because that workforce is on the front lines and very important.
Lutra in chat says this is reprehensible. It is. These people are disgusting. Yeah. They're reprehensible racists. They're reprehensible. Like they are basically deciding. And again, this is all assuming that you agree with them, that
right.
These are people who presumably believe that the vaccine is going to save lives and that it's a net positive and that we should all take it. That's what they believe. And then they're saying, let's decide who gets it based on race.
Yep. I mean, by the way, how that's not eugenics, I don't know.
It is eugenics.
I mean, it's the same thing. And all you people that want daddy or mommy government to do something for you, this is what happens. So
it's almost there's almost no words for that.
No.
This is just like in the social justice groups I'm in on Facebook, where they're celebrating cabinet picks by Biden based on race and sex and sex. Who the F cares? You know what? I'm not here celebrating with you because I'm not a racist.
Yeah.
I'm not like, oh, great. You picked someone of this race. Oh, you picked someone of my sex. Thank you for picking a woman. Who cares?
Well,
and those people who pretend like they care, they don't care. Because if it were Sarah Palin or Condoleezza Rice or Ben Carson, we've already seen what they do. They don't actually care. They're just liars.
Yeah, no, I mean, they don't, as we've said before, they use words as manipulation tools, not as reference to reality. But the thing to notice here culturally is how casually this is thrown around as unquestionably a good thing in the New York Times, right? These people say this stuff. Harald Schmidt says this
proudly
as like, oh, well, they're white, so we shouldn't do it. He doesn't feel any need, like, he's not worried about how that looks. He's not worried about his colleagues coming after him saying that, isn't that a little bit racist? He's not worried. The New York Times isn't worried about printing that. That's the culture we're in. People feel free to talk like that. And you wonder why some of the radical white supremacist stuff is going to be on the rise. This is why. Because these kids that don't understand the philosophy behind it and have bought into this horrible idea that everything should be viewed in terms of race, and they put race glasses on to make decisions about people, they're going to choose what benefits their own race because they're told that those are the choices. You either you self-immolate or you go to be a supremacist. Like those are the choices they're given. So this is how you further divide people. This is one of the ways you enable this kind of crap, and it goes unquestioned.
Somebody said this on Twitter a while back, if you can swap out the races in what you're saying, and it suddenly sounds like you're at a KKK rally, what you're saying is effing disgusting and racist. So if it were like Harald Schmidt, an expert in ethics and health policy at the University of Pennsylvania, said that it is reasonable to put essential workers ahead of older adults given their risk and that they are disproportionately white. Quote, older populations are blacker, Dr. Schmidt said. Society is structured in a way that enables Black people to live longer. Instead of giving additional health benefits to those who already had more of them, we can start to level the playing field a bit.
Yep. Yeah.
What?
So, yeah, I mean, my only point about this is that this is one of those indicators of where we are culturally, that this stuff gets said, gets thrown around in the New York Times, and no one cares. No one, and when I say no one cares, obviously we care and people talk about it, but none of the establishment cares. No one is, no other major publication is criticizing them. No one's going to criticize this guy or the people who wrote this article. Like, no one in government cares. Like, no one cares. No one in power cares about this. It's just, and it's said so casually that it shows you
it's so
what
casual.
culture we're in. That's the culture we're in.
This guy, Harald Schmidt, he's still got a job today, I bet. Oh, you can't see that. But
yep.
There he is.
Middle, you can see it.
Good old Harald. Let's let old people die because they're white.
Yep.
Okay.
And by the way,
anyway,
just for the record, if it's not already clear to those who have or maybe new to the show, I don't support the government making any of the decisions. I don't know why the government has an ounce of vaccine on their person or, in their possession. Government shouldn't be involved in this. But hey, that's me.
Well, and for the record, I'm not taking a vaccine anyway. So
right. But, my answer to who gets the vaccine is if it's Pfizer's vaccine, who gets the vaccine is who Pfizer sells it to. That's who gets the vaccine.
That's the answer.
That's the answer. And there you go.